Hi everyone. My name is Brandy, and I want to thank you, Rose, for inviting me to be a part of your Black History Month Gala. So this is an amazing opportunity. And I am the author of Real Talk, a conversation from my heart to yours. Wow. It's a 30-day devotional which features different testimonies just to help to encourage you, build your faith, build your hope, and just have a closer relationship with God. And just to give you a little bit of background, so I actually wrote the book. It hasn't even been a year yet. It took me 9 months to write the book. So the book came out in September of 2018, and my minister gave me a prophetic word, and he said that he sees me writing a book about my transformation. So one day I went to Walmart, got a notebook, and then I just started writing, and then I didn't even realize that it kind of manifested itself into a book. And I had about 34 devotionals written, and my friend said, well, you should make it a 30-day devotional, and then I had 4 left over. So with the 4 left over, I wrote 3 more, and I created a devotional website called Pray the Impossible. So on Pray the Impossible, I feature weekly testimonial conversations where I just see God in the midst of a conversation that I have with somebody, just to build everyone's faith, because I was a person, I didn't grow up going to church, so I was a person who didn't have a relationship with God. So as I started going to church, I've just needed that same encouragement. So that's pretty much the premise around the book. To reach anyone who's looking for God, or who's broken, who's hurt, and who just needs that extra encouragement. So I'll read a conversation out of the book, and I will read Conversation 25. It's called The Waiting Room. Wait patiently for the Lord. Be brave and courageous. Yes, wait patiently for the Lord. And that comes from Psalms 27:14, New Living Translation. Waiting. Who likes to wait? Waiting for test results from your doctor, waiting in traffic, or waiting for a vacation can cause you to become impatient. None of those scenarios test your faith like the waiting you endure while you're in the waiting room for your life. Have you been in the waiting room believing God to manifest the promises over your life, wondering how much longer do I have to stay here? The waiting room is the place that you find yourself in after you have experienced trials and tribulations. After God has moved you beyond those trials, you graduate to a place where you are healed and find peace, knowing that what you have just experienced was working for your good. As you transition from your preparation season of sowing seeds to the harvest season of reaping the benefits, there's always a season of waiting. This in-between stage is where you should be getting excited about the blessings that are coming your way. Start thanking God in advance for what He has already done. There will be times when you feel impatient and discouraged witnessing others in their harvest season receiving the blessings that God has for them. The moment you begin to ask, God, when is it my turn? Or where are my blessings? Shift your focus and ask God for His perfect peace that surpasses all understanding. Know that what He has planned for you is better than anything that you could have ever imagined. The Bible teaches us to wait patiently for God. Waiting essentially means to be expectant. While we wait, we should praise God. We should tell God how great and mighty He is, how wonderful His works are, and that they are worth the wait. Remember the times in your life that God provided immense blessings over your life. God wants to perform wonderful works in the lives of His children, but some blessings take longer than others for Him to prepare you for. While you're waiting on God, take your faith, praise, and worship to the next level. While you're in the waiting room and witnessing other people's numbers in line get called for their blessing, know that you are next in line. Take your mind off the fact that you're waiting and thank God that your number will be called next. It is written that a day is like 1,000 years to the Lord, and 1,000 years is like a day. Wait patiently for the Lord, because what He's preparing you for is going to be worth the wait. And at the end of each conversation, I have a heart-to-heart section where I ask you questions just to meditate and kind of think on the word, and then there's a section for you to take notes. And the questions that I asked for this conversation are you currently in the waiting room waiting for God to answer your prayers? How do you react when God sends someone their blessings while you're in the waiting room together? What are you doing while you are waiting? Thank you. God bless you. And if anyone has any questions, I can answer any questions.
I got a question.
Oh, yeah.
So when did you first see yourself writing a book? Did it sneak up on you, or was it something you saw a while back?
It's funny because maybe like 10 years ago, my friend and I, we joked about writing a book. He's one of my best friends, and we were talking about, you know, just being single and just writing a book about like dating, so I joked about that. But when my minister gave me the word, I forgot that I had even joked about writing that book. So when he said, I'm like, okay, but I thought I would actually write the book in 5 years. So I didn't even think that all of this would even happen in less than a year. So it kind of took me by surprise. And I would just be home writing, and then this notebook, I'm like, wow, this is the book that he was talking about. So it kind of just like happened.
And how did your perception of yourself change after you saw your book and you read it to other people and you saw them with your book in their hand and all that?
I couldn't believe that that was me. And I just, from the time that I wrote, even till like today, it's the transformation of just my thought process and just like the wisdom that God has given me. I'm still at times like, oh my God, I wrote a book. Like, I still like, and I was just so humbled by it. I said it as if it's like an everyday thing, and it's really not. But just to see the impact and the influence that I've had on people like my grandmother's age, the people who are younger than me, and even like my age, it's amazing because originally when I was writing the book, I had it in mind for millennials, because I know a lot of people, you know, from, you know, just my age group. But just to see that it touched the lives of people who were more seasoned is just like, wow, that's only God who could have done that. You're welcome.
I have one question. So you said I don't know how to phrase this, that you did not grow up going to church. And I was dragging to church every Sunday before God got there. But how did you happen to make that growing up or coming into with your religion?
Well, actually, when I was 22, my best friend, she invited me to her church, which is called the House of the Lord. It's in Bergen County in Inglewood. And one day she invited me to go to church, and I was able to finally connect with the pastor. So I would go to church, but I would just go to church to say I went to church. I was young. I never really understood what the pastor was speaking about. So when I finally went there, it was just like an instant connection. And I never left my mom. She goes. My brother was actually the one who told my mom about the church when I invited him. So it just felt like home. It's a real small, intimate church, so I was able to grasp and finally understand the message that was being preached.
So a lot of the things in the book is about your life?
No, yes, actually I gave for my own personal testimony. So I could read the first conversation. That's kind of how I opened the book up. The first conversation and the last conversation are my own personal ones, and then I have like a couple of things in between that, you know, just because if I'm talking about, you know, feeling sad or feeling broken, I need to be vulnerable and transparent so that the reader can relate to me. Like, oh, she goes through it too. I'm not the only one that's going through it alone. So this was my actual personal testimony. This one is conversation 1, God will show up and show out. For with God, nothing will be impossible. And that's Luke 1:37. Are you currently experiencing a situation that seems impossible? Do you think to yourself, how am I going to work this out? Or better yet, do you believe that the circumstance will not turn around in your favor? What you are experiencing is not meant for you to figure it. The situation is intended for you to let God do what only God can do and watch God show up and show out in your life. Would you believe that I did not grow up attending church regularly, nor did I grow up having a relationship with God? It is true. It was not until 2007 when my sister from another mister invited me to attend her church with her that I began going faithfully. I remember my first experience with God in 2008 that changed my life. He showed up and showed out on my behalf. A college colleague of mine helped me to get a job as a sales assistant working for an event planning magazine that she too worked for. One day, she and I were having a regular conversation, and I mentioned to her about a situation I had just encountered after filing my taxes. At 23 years old, while working for the first time in my career, I owed the IRS $3,000. My employer at the time did not take taxes out of my check, and I was unaware that I needed to set money aside for taxes to pay at the end of the year. I did not know what I was going to do, nor where I was going to get the money from to pay the taxes. After all, at that time I was making under $30,000 a year in my new position. I paid $700 a month to Sally Mae, and I was living off $100 after expenses until my next paycheck. The next day, my colleague pulled me into the kitchen and handed me an envelope and told me not to worry about paying her back. As a young woman of God, she informed me that the Lord spoke to her after our conversation. She told me, Jesus died on the cross for my sins, and there is no way that I could ever repay him. The only thing that I can do is to help someone else. The envelope that she handed me was filled with the money that I needed to pay my taxes. She was the vessel. Through her, God showed up and showed out. What looked impossible to me, God made possible. All it took was one conversation for God to use her to be the answer to where am I going to get the money from to bless me. I will always remember April 16, 2008 for the rest of my life. That was the day I experienced God in my life. I believe that he uses situations that seem hopeless to make you trust that he will show up and show out. I hope my testimony will help you to believe that no matter what you are going through, God will show up and show out in your life. Amen.
What's your friend's name?
Yes, well, my website is called PrayTheImpossible.com. I'm also on Facebook, Pray the Impossible, and Instagram. And on there, you can follow me. You can get daily encouragement, daily words, just to help uplift your spirits and just to help with your faith. Thank you.